Welcome to Be Customer Led, where we'll explore how leading experts in customer and employee experience are navigating organizations through their own journey to be customer led, and the actions and behaviors employees and businesses exhibit to get there. And now your host, Marbu Brown.
Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining me for today's episode of Be Customer Led. I'm excited about the conversation we have planned for you. This time, we're going to tackle a subject that you might not have been thinking about a lot lately, but maybe you should be. And that is the intersection between knowledge management and AI. And we have a great guest to help us delve into that. Today, we welcome Brad Shaw to the program. Brad is the CEO of Livepro, a company that specializes in delivering knowledge management solutions for CX teams. Brad is a highly successful company director, CEO, and business coach who has helped over 300 C-level executives and business owners spanning more than 100 industries. Welcome to the program, Brad.
Thanks, mate. And thanks for having me on. Congratulations on the podcast. I think it's a great initiative.
Well, I'm so excited to have you because, like I said, we've got a subject to talk about that maybe people have not been thinking about as much as they should have. When AI burst onto the scene a couple of years ago, we heard about all these amazing things that ChatGPT could do, like pass the bar exam and compose music that rivals what, pop artists do and whatnot. But in people's businesses, they don't need AI to pass the bar exam and they don't need it to compose pop music, right? In fact, the typical business is not going to be able to use generic ChatGPT for the use cases that are important to them. They're going to, more than likely, they're going to be using some custom large language models, LLMs, and on the back end of those LLMs are going to be some knowledge bases. And if those knowledge bases aren't right, there's going to be trouble. So thus, we've got to talk about knowledge management and how it intersects with AI. But let me not get ahead of myself. Before we really delve into that discussion in a deep way, why don't we give our audience a chance to get to know you better? Could you share a little bit with us about your career journey and how it is you came to be the CEO of Livepro?
It's a bit boring, and as you can tell, I've had a lot of birthdays, so that we could go for hours on this, so I'll make it really quick. I was a business coach for 12 years and coached a number of very successful business owners and professional CEOs. One of those CEOs was running a business that was sold to Ricoh, and just a very, very small part of that business was software called Livepro. And Ricoh said, well, we don't want this knowledge management system. So I said to the CEO that I was coaching, so what are you going to do with that product? It's too good to let die. And he said, I don't know. Do you want to take it? And I said, look, nobody should run a business unless they are passionate about it. And I like the product, but I'm passionate about coaching. But I've helped a number of people become very successful. Livepro wasn't making money. It was actually losing money. It only had 8 customers. So that I needed to find somebody that could operate without getting an income for a while until it got really running. I spent about 6 months and wasn't really successful at it. And then, honestly, it sounds like a cliche, but I woke up at 2 a.m. one day with this business plan in my head, couldn't go back to sleep, got up, wrote the business plan, and wrote to the owner and said, I think I found that sucker that is really passionate about Livepro. And some years later, I'm now the major shareholder and CEO. We've grown from being 8 customers and losing a lot of money to being global with clients on every continent and very successful. And it's because we're focused on one thing. Mm-hmm. That's to deliver an answer to a customer through whatever channel they want to ask the question. So customers want answers. They don't want information. You don't want document management systems for customers because customers don't want documents. They want an answer.
That's right.
You've got to have a knowledge management system, and knowledge management systems do a number of things more than an FAQ. FAQs are a small part of knowledge management. It's how do I do this? Can I do this? Like, am I eligible for this? And there's a lot of training that needs to go into people understanding and remembering that if you don't have a great knowledge management system. So that's my history. And as you can tell, I've been doing it now for 11 years and I'm still passionate about it.
Well, that's a great thing. And as somebody says that, if you're passionate about what you do, then, it's not going to work. Right. So I think of it like there's a period of time where among the hot topics in the business world, knowledge management was probably one of the hottest ones. Now, today, AI, of course, is the hottest technology on the planet. And everybody's looking to hop on the AI bandwagon if they haven't already done so. Yet, your perspective is, hey, you can't have great AI without great knowledge management. So why is that? Tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah, well, let's not get too caught up with AI because AI has been around for a long time. Everybody reminds us of that. We're talking about generative AI.
Generative AI.
And the ChatGPT type systems. And you can do a lot of things. In Livepro, we do a lot of things with ChatGPT without it necessarily being linked to a knowledge base. Mm-hmm. But if you want to be certain of the answer, and every company should be wanting to be certain of the answer if they're answering a customer's question, then you need to have absolute control over the information that the system is referring to. The alternative is to simply crowdsource answers about your products, your processes, and your procedures from the internet. And that just doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't.
In fact, if you ask ChatGPT or Claude or any of the others, can you operate effectively without a knowledge management system? It will tell you no, because you have to be certain that it's referring to approved, up-to-date knowledge for it to be able to get the answer. The other thing about knowledge management is it's management. It's not storage. So you've got to manage the knowledge. So therefore, you've got to be able to have a say on who is allowed to access that knowledge. Mm-hmm. So ChatGPT or any of the generative AI systems could be referred to a fully managed knowledge base that doesn't manage the permissions. And all of a sudden, it's giving out information to competitors, it's giving out information to customers that is actually really confidential. So you have to not only make sure that it's up to date, approved and sanctioned, it also has to determine who's allowed to have access to that knowledge.
It's interesting because even as we talk about this, I think about the notion of public cloud and private cloud. When it gets right down to it, the kinds of things that ChatGPT typically has access to are things that are for public consumption. But when you're making information available to your customers and you're answering questions for your customers that are based on company policies, that are based on company processes, that are based on things that are proprietary and that are internal to the company, those are things that ChatGPT typically will not necessarily be trained on. And that's where I was talking about these whole custom LLMs and, something being on the back end of those custom LLMs. Now, if you're not using something that's custom, then it's in fact more prone to these hallucinations that we all worry about, right? So, I think that's one of the challenging things that maybe people have not nearly paid enough attention to. So what are some of the biggest misconceptions that leaders have about the relationship between AI and knowledge management?
There's been surveys done in the last 18 months that's identifying that, particularly in the customer service area, the senior leaders are recognizing that knowledge management is so much more important now with AI than it used to be. That's the senior leaders within contact centers. Outside of contact centers, I'm not sure yet that the executives have really identified the absolute importance of knowledge management. But let's face it, contact centers and customer service professionals have understood the need for knowledge management way more than the rest of the organization for so long, because they know that, particularly in highly governed industries, they know that their job's on the line if the wrong answer is given out all the time. So they've had this focus on wanting to be able to get the answers quickly. There hasn't always been this sanction from the larger organization to allow them to get the products that they need. Too often I hear contact centers saying, yes, Brad, we'd love to get your product, but, executives said, well, we use SharePoint and the rest of the company, so let's continue to use that. Or, there's a bolt-on knowledge management system to this CRM. Won't that do? So there's been too much influence by individuals outside of the contact center that just don't understand the need for speed and confidence when you're answering a customer's question. And you get that speed and confidence from a knowledge management system, not from a document storage system that like SharePoint, where you're not even sure that the document that's there is really up to date, if you can even find it. So that's one of the biggest impediments. It's starting to change. When ChatGPT first hit the market, a couple of my team were going to a prospect's office to do a demonstration of Livepro. The CEO was in the meeting, and as my team walked in, he said, I'm not even sure why I'm bothering to be at the meeting. ChatGPT is going to put you guys out of business. 6 months later, they're using Livepro because they've realized that you can't get that power. You can't get the accuracy and the confidence unless you actually have a knowledge management system with an AI-powered search that has the guardrails and the prompts that says, only answer the question if you can find the answer in this knowledge base. And that's a really important thing, because large language models are made to make things up. They don't hide from that. So you've got to stop it from making up.
You talk about the contact center angle, but I think of a couple of other angles, right? I think of angles like, well, pretty much anybody who's on the front line, people who are engaging with the customer in a retail type situation, people who are live in a physical space, in a bank branch where people are engaging. So I think that there's a number of these scenarios where folks are engaging in a live interaction where that knowledge is actually necessary to make a positive experience, right? But I can also think of scenarios internal to companies where HR has to answer, questions for employees. And there's a number of those kinds of scenarios, whether it's healthcare benefits or other kinds of perks that the company may give to employees, things that have to do with employee stock purchase plans or any of those kinds of things. So I think that there's a variety of these scenarios. I know a lot of time we just think about it from the perspective of what's facing external. But when we start thinking about the use cases where companies may be deploying AI, I can see a number of these scenarios that are, besides the contact center, right? Really do need to think of the employees as a whole nother set of customers. So in your mind, you work with a lot of clients on this. What does an AI ready knowledge base actually look like?
Let me double back, because you made a couple of really, really important points there.
Okay.
It's the focus on customer. Livepro is there to deliver an answer to the customer through whatever channel they want to ask the question. If they call a contact center, then we deliver the answer to the agent that then delivers the answer to the customer. If they get onto a chatbot, then Livepro is delivering the answer to the chatbot. If they come onto the website, Livepro is delivering the answer to the website. If they go to the front desk, that Livepro will be delivering the answer. And, in future, if they ask Alexa a question, Livepro will answer the question for them through Alexa. So you made a couple of good points, but the first good point was that you've only got one set of products, processes, procedures, and company information, let's not have a silo for every single communication channel that you've got, because that's impossible to keep up to date. Let's have it come from one single knowledge base that you are certain is correct, and then serve the same answer to the website, to the agent, to the mobile app. There's every single channel that Livepro can deliver the answer to. And even more importantly, with Agent Assist, you've got the answer coming from your knowledge base to the Agent Assist and through AI emails. I'll get onto that. The other point you made was it's about customers. And we only think about customers being external. But you made a really good point. HR has customers.
Absolutely.
So you've got to look at customers from an internal perspective as well. So you can actually have your knowledge in Livepro and be delivering the answer via your intranet to all of your staff. So it is about delivering an answer to the agent, to the end user, to the customer, internal or external. Yeah. There's so many different applications for connecting AI to a knowledge management system. You were very insightful to look past the contact center, and I want to talk about that near the end, because the knowledge management and AI is going to deliver you a personal assistant that you dreamed of through AI. But when Microsoft invested into ChatGPT, they thought of this product. They went to a number of their global brands and asked, would you like to be a pilot of this product? And they went to Prada in Milan, and they're one of our customers. So Prada heard what they wanted to do, and they said, yeah, I'd love to do that, but we're not going to connect it to SharePoint. We have to connect it to our knowledge base, Livepro. What that turned into is their co-pilot that works brilliantly for answering emails. So imagine this. You've got an email come in from Bradshaw. It goes to the Dynamics CRM and says, oh, Bradshaw's got these products. Then it gets ChatGPT to read my email. And then it goes to Livepro to determine what the answer is going to be, and then prepares the answer for that email. All the person responsible for answering the email has to do is review it, make sure it's right, or choose to press some buttons that says, can you make it more empathetic? Can you summarize it?
So this is a live example you're talking through here. Yeah.
Yes. We've got a global car manufacturer used to take 2.7 days to get to each email, and it's now 17 seconds.
Wow.
There's so many more apps. There's so many more applications.
Is that a similar co-pilot type situation where...
Same thing. Yeah. Yeah. It's the same product. Yeah.
Interesting. So that makes Copilot that much smarter in some way. It's like these pieces coming together to really make Copilot smarter and really more useful. And this is a great example because a lot of times, I've heard, people, or I've read some stuff where people have said, well, Copilot didn't change things that much for us. But when you bring these pieces together, then it's a whole, additional story here. Keep going, Brad.
Yeah. The important thing there is the only way you can be confident that the answer is correct is if you were certain that the knowledge it's referring to is correct. The only way you can be certain that your email isn't going to conflict with something that an agent has said is that it's coming from exactly the same knowledge base that everybody's going to be referring to. Mm-hmm. So that's the power of it. Now, if you think about that for the future, I'll give you something that we're already working on that you will see within the next 6 or 8 months. As the CEO of an organization, I have a strategic plan. Monthly, we have management meetings, getting updates and progress to the strategic plan, and minutes are kept. The minutes, by the way, are kept by AI, and they take the minutes and then allow me to review them to make sure they're okay. If I've got those filed in Livepro, the agentic part of AI, that is, for those people who are not familiar with the term agentic, AI search will give you an answer. Agentic will actually take action. So this is a taking action. So I can actually ask Livepro to give me a summary of how Livepro is going towards its strategic plan this year, and it will give me the report. Now, if that's not a personal assistant that I dream of, then nothing is. So if you manage your personal knowledge within a knowledge management system and you have that waterfall of permissions or stakeholder permissions, I call it, in your system, you can now do some magical things. If you don't have the permissions, though, be careful. All of a sudden, the knowledge is going to be about my strategic plan and the progress to the strategic plan is available to my competitors. So I need to actually be able to say, this is only available for this stakeholder group, and this information is only available for this stakeholder group. And now we've got a personal assistant that can do anything. I can say, I'm doing a podcast next week, and here are the questions. Can you go to my database and bring me up the answers to each one of these questions so I can prepare for the podcast? Or I read a brilliant blog. It was about now 16 weeks ago. And I read it, and it was about knowledge management. And I thought, oh, I love that. That's brilliant. So I reposted it. I spoke about it for weeks after. But, you know, as I said, I've had a lot of birthdays. So do I remember everything that was in that blog? No, I don't. But if I drag that blog into my knowledge base and then I'm asked to do a presentation on stage on a particular topic that this blog referred to, my version of a large language model is going to be able to include that in my presentation with a note to say who it was referencing. So all of a sudden, I've got a 100% memory if you actually have it in a knowledge base. But remember, the knowledge base doesn't actually only have to have permissions. You have to be certain that it is the latest version and that it's up to date. So it needs to prompt me to say, hey, Brad, you know, you wrote this article 12 months ago. You better review it to make sure it's still current. So it's going to give me that management as well.
Yeah, and I'll let you keep on going, but I just want to highlight a couple of points that you made, because one of the things is, let's say someone is implementing Agent Assist for the first time, and you spend a little bit of time to kind of scrub the knowledge bases and stuff like that, and you bring them up to date. But the question is, how do you keep those fresh? How do you keep them relevant? And that's what I was going to, ask you about, like, how do you keep them fresh? How do you keep them relevant and make sure that, that information's not getting stale? Because, I mean, as fast as things move, even by the end of the day, some of the stuff that has been scrubbed and brought up to date may no longer be fresh or even relevant, right? So how do you guys, handle that?
Another good point. And that's probably why I was excited about doing podcasts with you, because I knew that you'd be coming up with some great points. The knowledge is only as good as whether it's up to date or not, and whether it is approved. So there's a number of traditional ways, and then there's other AI ways. The most important way to keep everything fresh, up to date, and best practice is feedback. The users will tell you whether it's useful or not and give you proper feedback. Thumbs up and thumbs down is not feedback. That's just telling you whether I naively liked what you told me. But if you told me I'm handsome and I look 21, I'm going to give you a thumbs up. But does that make it correct? No. So you've got to actually have different methodologies. The first one is it helpful? Now, if it's not helpful, I need to get feedback on how I can make it more helpful. So give your users, whether it's your customers, whether it's your staff, an opportunity to provide you real feedback and then respond to it. Your system needs to have a process for you to be able to manage the response. And if I provide you feedback and you respond to it, and I can see you've responded to it, I'm going to provide more feedback. The easiest and quickest way for us to determine if a Livepro system is being used is not to have a look at the number of searches. It's to look at what sort of levels of feedback they're getting and how quickly they're responding to it. Because the interaction, if I'm confident that I can provide feedback and get a result, I'm going to give more of it. If I know that the last time I provided feedback and nobody did anything with it, I'm not going to do it. And then within 6 months, nobody's using the system. That's the first thing. The second thing is there's analytics in a good system that says, hey, this knowledge article is up for review. But in a good knowledge management system, you can actually choose whether this knowledge article is reviewed on the 30th of December or the 1st of January every year, or whether it's reviewed every 12 months just to make sure it's up to date. And then the owner of the knowledge gets an email to say, hey, this knowledge article needs to be reviewed, have a look at it, and then tick it off. That's the second.
Can that timeline be shorter? I mean, like,
yes.
all of these have like different aging mechanisms?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
But there's even more intricate than that. So you can say review this every month. You can say review it every quarter. You can say that it needs to be reviewed every 6 months. But if it says it needs to be reviewed every 6 months, and then you've reviewed it after 4 months because there was a change, it will automatically push it out for another 6 months. So It's not coming up. A good knowledge management system should make it easy for you to be able to keep it fresh and up to date by those prompts. The next traditional way is that a good knowledge management system will have an analytics system that actually will say, hey, this knowledge article hasn't even been accessed for the last 12 months. Is it still necessary? Should you archive it? Or this knowledge management article has had this amount of feedback. You've addressed it, but should you be reviewing it completely to make it more suitable for the audience? And so it's and then there's the knowledge articles that aren't in there that the system should tell you about. So if there's a search done and there's no knowledge article in there, the knowledge administrator should get an alert to say, hey, user X searched for this and there's nothing in there. You should put something into the system. In fact, in a good knowledge management system, it will, when you do the search, if there's no answer or no knowledge in there, it should pop up a pop-up to say, there's nothing in the system. Can you give me more information about what you're looking for so we can put the knowledge in there for you? So all of that. And remember, we're not just talking about agents here. You can do that for a client coming to your website that searches for something and can't get an answer. You can get a pop-up that actually says, tell me more.
Yeah, I mean, like what you said, this whole thing about the customer being able to get the answers wherever they're trying to get it. And so certainly if it's a self-serve type of a scenario, it should be able to help to contribute to the system being able to update. But do you ever foresee a scenario where the system, the knowledge management or the knowledge base can be updated autonomously by AI where, it can crawl different things in the company or, even on social media to determine, whether certain pieces need to be updated? I mean, for example, the company may be offering promotions and maybe this promotion is no longer relevant, or maybe they extended it, or, do you foresee a scenario where, AI will begin to be able to autonomously, update things and kind of keep the knowledge bases fresh?
I believe it'll happen. I can't see yet the development that gives me the confidence to say that I can see when, because there's still a lot of work to be done. That remember, the generative AI systems are designed to hallucinate. It is designed to answer the question whether it knows certainly whether the answer is right or not. And my wife says that ChatGPT is like my husband. He'll answer the question like he absolutely knows the answer, but he doesn't have a clue. And that's what large language models are designed to do. So I can see that one day it's possible, but I can't see currently that it is. But there are some things that you've suggested that are definitely going to be a component of it. So, for instance, if I have some policies that are related to a piece of legislation, then I can actually tell AI to keep an eye on the legislation, and if it changes, alert me to how I should rewrite my knowledge base. It will rewrite it, but you're actually saying automatically. I'm saying at this point, there's no way I would get AI to automatically do anything. It has to be an assisting a human, not replacing a human at this point, because I don't want AI all of a sudden changing something because there's been a change of legislation and then changing it incorrectly. I mean, that's worse than getting old data. So, look, I'm not sure where the future is, but I can see where it currently is, where its capabilities are, and it's not there.
One of these days, maybe the systems will be able to, autonomously update themselves, but we're not quite there yet. So, what do you see as the next frontier for knowledge management in enabling more human personalized AI experiences?
I touched on it a little bit earlier. I definitely think that the contact center and customer experience people are ahead of the curve because they understand the need for knowledge management. But the HR department or the legal department were never judged on their AHT. So nobody really cared or noticed if they took half an hour to find a knowledge article that they needed to access. But if you do that in a contact center, your AHT is blown. So, but what I described earlier about having your AI personal assistant is something that I believe will become ubiquitous. That people are already using ChatGPT at work. The only thing is they're using it based on what's on the internet. In fact, there's a famous case in Australia at the moment where the government is asking for some money back from one of the large consulting firms because they found that the $250,000 that they paid for advice was just downloaded from ChatGPT, referring to cases that were not even in the jurisdiction that they were talking about. So you could do that if you actually have your knowledge curated. So everybody going forward at some point is going to say, you know what, if I have all of my knowledge in the knowledge base and I refer ChatGPT or a generative AI to that system to get me the answer, it's going to work for me. And I believe that's where the future is, and we'll be releasing some things fairly soon to be able to realize that. But, there's still a lot of companies that are nervous about it. There's a lot of organizations that are saying we need to have an AI policy. I think that the policy and the strategy everybody should have is the same as what it was when ChatGPT or generative AI came out. Livepro's vision, Livepro's strategy has not changed because of AI. We've always been there to deliver an answer to a customer through whatever channel they ask the question. You've just got to find AI ways to help you do that better. So don't get an AI strategy. Stick with the strategy, but find out how AI can help you achieve your strategy.
Yeah, well, a lot of people have been mesmerized by the shiny object, and they're not focused on the use cases, right? Yep. And the fact is, LLMs with their amazing language understanding capabilities and everything like that has opened up avenues for us to crack the code on things that we've been trying to crack the code on for a long time. And so if we apply AI to those use cases and we solve those use cases, now granted, there are some things that were unimagined that we're also able to do. Okay. And we should be doing those things as well. But don't forget about those use cases that you've been beating your head against the wall trying to solve, and you haven't been able to solve them. And generative AI basically helps you to crack the code to solve those and also go to those things that were unimagined before. Well, look, if you had just one piece of advice to give CX leaders regarding integrating AI with knowledge management, what would it be?
It's going to be so predictable. And that is that make sure that you're having your generative AI model referring to a fully managed knowledge base. Mm-hmm. Be certain that the knowledge is up to date, that it's approved, that compliance has given it the nod, and you are certain that you're in control of who is allowed to access different levels of knowledge. If you've got that, make sure that you have the generative AI powered search and the prompts and guardrails, because it doesn't matter how good your knowledge is if you don't have the prompts and guardrails to say, don't refer to anything else but what's in this knowledge base. They're the key things to do. We've got, obviously, we've got lots of customers that are already accessing that, and 90% satisfaction levels don't lie. And we get 90% customer satisfaction.
It's interesting because earlier you said something about, systems being designed to hallucinate. But frankly, if you do the right thing with this, you can keep them from hallucinating, right? And
Correct.
That would be the case. Brad, if people want to continue this conversation with you, how do they get a hold of you?
Grab me on LinkedIn. I would be flattered if somebody reached out. My email address is brad.shaw@livepro.com. But just connect with me on LinkedIn or just go to the website and check it out. I would be flattered if somebody reached out and said, hey, would love to have a chat.
Well, I want to thank you for spending the time with us and helping us to think about, a whole nother angle, because I think, sometimes we don't realize what are some of the things that we have to do in the background to ensure that, these AI projects actually do deliver the impact we want them to deliver. They do deliver the ROI that we want them to deliver, right? There's some of this stuff that we have to do, on behind the scenes to make sure that actually goes well. So again, thank you for joining us and sharing this with us. To our audience, I want to say thank you for taking the time to listen to this. I certainly hope you've picked up some ideas that you can put to use right away, that can help you to make your AI initiatives more successful. And come back again next time, because we are going to keep tackling these subjects and bringing you ideas, nuggets, things that you can use to continue, taking your customer experience to the next level, raising the bar. So thank you. That's all for today. Join us again next time on Be Customer Led.
Thanks for listening to Be Customer Led with Marbu Brown. We are grateful to our audience for the gift of their time. Be sure to visit us at becustomerled.com for more episodes. Leave us feedback on how we're doing or tell us what you want to hear more about. Until next time, we're out.